What's up, humans? Welcome to a new Psicoactivo. How are you? I hope everybody's doing okay. Happy Wednesday. Okay, so for today's video, I just want to talk to you a little bit about Dr. Jacques Vallee because his new book, Forbidden Science number 6, is out. And I've noticed that he's been doing more podcasts and more interviews. I'm trying to reach out to him. I already have a couple of people that I asked and I'm waiting to get back. If that happens, it's gonna get really interesting. Let's hope it does. But I saw the most recent interview that just came out with him, and I think the first one that I've seen in a while was with Ryan Sprague, who is the host of Somewhere in the Skies. He was the person who actually invited me to the Anomicon event last year. So thank you, Ryan, for that. That was a really unique experience, and I learned a lot. So I want to thank you for that. And coincidentally, my presentation was about Dr. Jacques Vallee. And now Ryan spoke to him, and there is a part that he released just before the interview, a clip that I asked him permission to play it because I think it fits into the whole conversation right now, where people who weren't sharing their experiences before are now coming out and sharing them. We had recently Mr. Robert Hastings, who wrote UFOs and Nukes, coming out with Jesse Michaels talking about his experiences. We have Jim Semivan talking about his experiences. We have on the Age of Disclosure documentary, we have Jay Stratton talking about seeing craft and beings. And now we have Dr. Jacques Vallee talking about his contact experience. And I find it really interesting because he didn't feel like he was threatened, but that didn't impede him from feeling afraid. And that is not that hard to understand because to anybody, having an experience like that could be really traumatic. I know that there's a lot of people that have gone through something similar to this. And the experience, as far as I have been able to tell from the different accounts that I've seen, these experiences are very subjective for pretty much everybody. There are a couple of tropes that are similar throughout history, which is maybe the classic gray alien or the shadow beings. Those are consistent in different places around the world for many, many years and decades. But the way in which the experience happens, it's almost as if it was like a dream, some sort of a dream, in many cases, not all of them. And in this case, Dr. Vallee came out to talk about it, and he was even having a hard time explaining it properly because he's not sure what he experienced yet completely. He's sure to the point where he knows he had a contact experience with an entity. So here is Mr. Ryan Sprague having Dr. Jacques Vallee on his podcast talking about Dr. Jacques Vallee's contact experience. Here it is.
Another experience which is more, more recent, that I have not completely recovered from. I had continued to look at how parapsychology could be used to, frankly, to get to contact. Mm-hmm. And so I had spoken to people who had researched the same thing and to create the conditions where you could make something happen. And this was in San Francisco, not here in Paris. It was in San Francisco, and we did a number of structured environments that might be susceptible, and I talk about that in the book, might be susceptible to bringing that kind of experience of contact. And nothing much had happened. Vague impressions and so on. And then one night, I'm asleep. All of a sudden, I'm out of my body. Now, psychics describe going out of their body with a structured way and so on. And there are people who can apparently teach that. I had never taken those courses. I had spoken to them, Bob Monroe and others. I had met and I had discussed the process and so on. But this was not under my control. I mean, something had just taken me and moved me to a place in my apartment in San Francisco where I was in front of an entity. The entity was not threatening, but it was large. I thought of it as, frankly, as a living being in front of me, as tall as I am, with no particular features on it, but clearly ready to communicate. There was a sense of complete communication, but again, I was out of my body, so it wasn't going to be hearing or... I was in that presence. I was very scared, even though it was not threatening, but I had never anticipated that. And I think I was so scared that projected me back in my body. My body woke up and I was in tears. And I was just completely surprised, by what had happened. There was no question I was asleep. My body was asleep the whole time. My mind wasn't. So it had essentially extracted me, to present that situation. Now, I write about that in the book. There was more, and obviously I want to explore it more, but I don't want to lead the reader into any theory about what happened because I don't understand what happened.
So something that I wanted to just talk about a little bit, and now that the psionics aspect of it and establishing contact essentially is what it is, I would like to give a public service announcement because there seems to be a lot of people that are really excited to do this part of the psionics capabilities, contact. And in some cases, I don't think that's the best idea. I know there are people who don't have such a positive experience and maybe take it a little too far sometimes, in the sense that they do it too often and sometimes they get mentally really tired and they don't get any sleep. So, as with anything in life, even this also needs to be taken with extreme care, done with extreme care. If you're not going through a good moment in your life, if you're not sleeping, if you're not well fed, if you're suffering through depression, anxiety, stuff like that, maybe it's not such a good idea to try and establish contact with anything. You need to be in a good place. I think that's probably the most optimal way in which you can try and do something. But I would ask people to maybe just educate themselves. And if you're not well educated on the subject, on the literature, don't do it yet. Try to educate yourself first and see what goes on and the different types of experiences that people have gone through. And if after you have read and seen what happens when you do that, if you still want to go ahead, just be careful and be in a good place. But I would recommend you guys to take it easy, because based on what Dr. Valleé experienced here, it's not always pleasant despite not feeling any threat, And yeah, because it's a really, in many instances, surreal, kind of liquid experience that you don't know for sure whether you're really living it or not. This is something that happened to me during my psychedelic experiences over that decade in my 20s, because I went through many experiences, and for a long time after it happened, I stopped doing psychedelics, and I always thought that it was just my imagination, or this only happens when you're like high on something and it's not really real. But then I realized that I'm not the only one who has gone through this. There's a lot of people who have, and they also claim to have gone through very similar experiences than me. And that just makes you think how subjective these experiences can be, especially when it comes to psi abilities. So I do think that, for example, Dr. Valleé went through this. He was able to see something because he is now educated and well versed and well read into what John Keel called the super spectrum. So he's more sensitive to a lot of that. And I bet he's gone through training and he practices. In the past, there were other famous either doctors, PhDs, or people from the Intel community who have written about these experiences. And one of the most famous one, perhaps, is Dr. Andrea Puharich, because he kept doing these attempts to contact entities, and it's well documented. I don't know if there was something that he did that made him become like an obscure figure within the topic, because not a lot of people seem to like talking about him. I'm still digging into that. Whatever happened with him in his life, something dark seems to have happened, but I don't know what it is yet. Yeah, it depends, I guess, on how you approach this contact and the contact modalities that James Yandoli talks about. We spoke about this in our conversation, and I think it's very important to be in a good place. So I just wanted to let you guys know both that Dr. Valleé seems to be back in the circuit. We're going to be hearing more from him because of his book. And also, just be careful if you want to try and establish contact. Even for a veteran such as Dr. Valleé, it got difficult one time, that one time that he talked about. I'm not sure if he has had more experiences. I would guess that he has, but it's really important to see someone so crucial to this whole movement coming forward and talking about it. I bet that, for example, when Dr. John Blitch came forward, that may have given other experiencers with a big rank or big names in the topic motivation to come forward. And maybe that's why Dr. Valleé decided to do it now. Either way, I think it's positive. It's a good thing because more people are gonna start to open up too. And these are experiences that need to be told to others so people know what we are dealing with, really, you know, and just to know how to tackle it together. Communication is key in all of this, whether it's verbal or non-verbal, but it's key, I think. So thank you, Dr. Valleé, for opening up to this, and thank you to Ryan for getting that story out of him. I also hadn't seen Dr. Valleé smile like that, so kudos, Ryan. But yeah, that's it for me today. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to, do the usual. You can hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel go a long way. Share the content. Leave me your comments on what you think about this experience. And what do you think about my suggestion to not take it so quickly and be in a good place? I think it's useful to do that, I guess. Maybe you don't agree, but let me know. And to those who find this topic about contact too much, just listen to the people around you, especially the ones that are closer to you. If they want to tell you something and maybe it's because they need some type of help. Maybe it's not related to this, but learn to listen more to the people around you. You never know what you can find. Let me know what you think, and I'll be watching you in the comments. And that's it for me today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember to stay curious. Okay. Bye.